Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Leadership from the Heart. I'm your host, Romie, and today I'm writing solo, and we're going to be talking about team operating guidelines, also known as team norms. That's kind of our series for the week. And I want to kind of take it back to where I learned team operating guidelines and why I think they're so important. If you're running a team, if you're leading a team, I think this is one of the quickest ways to get things accomplished without having to work harder, right? This is team alignment. So if your team is feeling inconsistent depending on the day, it's likely that they don't have standards or they don't have an agreement upon how they're going to operate together. And this isn't really any fault of anybody's, including you as a leader, right? Before I knew about team operating guidelines or team norms, I operated with this understanding that people just knew how to act. And that's one of like the mysteries of leadership is that you don't know what you don't know. And but once you learn it, it's going to be hard to look away. And this is one of those episodes for you guys. And the difficult part about team operating guidelines, I would say, is the courage to actually do it, right? Because when I first learned about it, I was sitting in a leadership seminar. They introduced team operating guidelines. And, at first you're like, wow, this sounds really nice. This sounds nice to have all these things. And you're like, absolutely, I'm going to do it. And then it comes time to do it. And the reason why it's hard is because it takes courage. It's because, there's a part of you that doesn't want to look kind of like nerdy or geeky. At least that was my story. And I knew that where I had to come from was a place of something bigger than myself. And I wanted our team at the time to be in harmony, right? And not necessarily harmony like everything's all good all the time, because I don't think that that really exists. However, I did want to address some things that the team thought were necessary to address. And so team operating guidelines, they're important, right? It's important for a team to know this is how we're going to function. And you can see this a lot in families, right? Like the parents set the rules based on the values that they uphold. And having a team is no different than that, right? And so let's get right into it. I know I went off in a tangent already, but one thing I could definitely tell you that it's you're going to walk away from this episode knowing how to administer, collaborate with, and help your team agree on how they're going to operate. And the most beautiful part is that it's not necessarily about you, it's about the team and what they agree on. And so we as leaders, managers, we definitely default to holding people accountable, right? So I'm going to make up some names, but like, let's say Sally and Joe, and Joe doesn't like the way Sally's writing back to her or not writing back to her. And everybody has different things that they find important, right? Especially at work. So while Sally may be a little offended that Joe doesn't respond back to emails, to Joe, responding to emails is not really a big deal, and so therefore the level of responsibility for him responding is not really that high. And so what we don't understand is why Sally cares about the way or if Joe answers emails, and Joe doesn't understand why Sally cares so much, because in his realm, in his world, not responding to an email, it's fine. It's not offensive. And these are the different types of dynamics that we can see when we're leading a team, is that different things matter to different people. And as many times as we want to have the conversation about why Sally shouldn't feel this way, or how, Joe should acknowledge how Sally feels, it is just much easier to say, to have everyone say, these are the things that matter to me. And when you don't, or when you do them, this is how it makes me feel. And so team operating guidelines, basically, they're just an agreement of things that we're going to say we're going to work on, right? No matter what. And so once we have this shared agreement, and it's not necessarily a list of 20 rules that we're all going to apply, the way I did this was I gave them the list of operating guidelines and I asked them to pick the top 5 that mattered to them the most. And it was very interesting because everybody sent me individually, of course, their top 5. And then I, as the leader, was able to put them together, and I found, the majority ruled top 5 rules. And it was beautiful things like assume positive intent, reply to an email within 24 hours, acknowledge people when you walk into the door for the first time. There were things that you would think are automatic, but they're not automatic for everyone. And then there, of course, were some that didn't make the cut because they were only important to certain people. And so while those didn't make the cut of we're going to focus on these values, they were, sub values. And so the way I addressed it was, hey, these are the 5 values that we appear to agree on, right? And I think I did top 7 so we could land at 5. That's exactly what we did. So I did top 7 so we can land at 5. And what I did with the ones that didn't make the cut was I just want you guys to be aware of the other things that matter to people. Actually going to go ahead and pull up these team operating guidelines so I can read a few of them. These are also called team norms, as I said before, but a few of them are active listening, respect, to treat every team member with respect and courtesy and acknowledge the value of their contributions and perspectives. Open and honest communication, which is encourage open, transparent, and honest communication, ensuring that team members feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and concerns without a scuffle, without a judgment and stuff like that. Timeliness, set expectations for punctuality in meetings and for meeting project deadlines to ensure workflow, right? Because things like being a couple of late to a couple of a meeting may not matter to one person, where someone else, they hold punctuality at a very high regard. And if you're not punctual, then you're honestly in their mind disrespecting them. And so there are about 26. If you reply to this episode and or email me at info@leadershipfromtheheart.co, I will email you the framework and how to apply this and the best ways to do it. But these are all things that we think are common sense. And while they are common sense, there are a few things that matter to you that may not matter to other people. And so the purpose of agreeing to these is to say, like I did with the team, right? So we all picked our top 7. The top 5 made the cut. There were some honorable mentions. And so people just had an understanding, a wider perspective of what mattered to people. And once you have a wider perspective of what mattered to people, then you automatically became a little bit more courteous, a little bit more, how do you say that? A little bit more conscious of what care looked like to them. And if you don't establish these agreements, then your team will run on the invisible rules that they define. And it's all going to be about what matters to them. So what happens without the team operating guidelines is inconsistent execution because everybody's kind of in it for themselves. You have a lot of repeated conversations, and the leader is constantly trying to mediate how Sally feels from what Joe did and how Joe feels from what Sally said. And there's a lack of ownership in all of it, right? And the thing is that it's not a people issue. It's just a system that we have to create within the people realm of teams. And this is how teams function, right? We have to agree on how we're going to move forward. And one of my favorite things that the team agreed on was replying to an email within 24 hours because that mattered to them a lot. I think it was part of everyone's team operating guideline choice, and yet nobody was really adhering to it. So it was fascinating for me to watch how this mattered to everyone, and yet we were still having issues prior to this agreement with people responding to each other. So it created an open dialogue of communication. It created ownership because once they pick, right, and it makes the majority rules list, there's ownership in that. They have set the standard for themselves. They have set the standard for each other. And my favorite one that they picked was assuming positive intent. It may be because I'm an optimist. However, I usually assume positive intent because I'd rather go through the world thinking like that than the opposite. But it definitely brought a lot of optimism to the team, where somebody would automatically think something was being done maliciously whenever, somebody would start that, because just because you pick it doesn't mean it starts happening right away, right? It's still conditioning. And so somebody would say team operating guidelines, and we would automatically start to say, all right, we're going to assume positive intent. And then we would have an honest conversation, or that person would address the person. And it was a better conversation to have because now they were actually curious as to why they did or didn't do whatever it was versus them creating what we've talked about, the story in your head. And managers have to have the courage to do this, right? And it, while the team does pick the ones that matter to them the most, this is a top down implementation. you have to be the one to initiate this and then make people feel secure and safe enough to do it. You have to get their collaboration in it. Without their collaboration, if you're the leader and you think you're just going to pick, then nobody has buy in. And there's going to be this resistance because people are going to wonder, why do you get to pick? Those obviously matter to you, but they may not matter to me. And so that's why you always want to collaborate. I am a high collaborator. It is easy for me to collaborate and ask people what their opinions are. And I realize that. However, in things like this, you already are the leader. There's nothing to prove, you know? And so you want to collaborate with the team and you want them to pick their own team operating guidelines so that there is less effort from your part and there's more alignment from their part. Now, I do want to preface this. You may not love the things that they pick, and that's okay. Your job is not to love all the things. Your job is to direct and help lead this team into the most harmonious, high performing team you possibly could. And I'm reflecting now on how long we were able to maintain this operating guidelines, this agreement that we had. And it was honestly about 12 months before we had to revisit it. And the coolest part is, like, revisiting it annually is something that I would recommend, because once you've established the agreement and you guys are actually functioning within those agreements, that kind of becomes second nature now. Now we've created new conditioning, and other things may start to fall apart or need refinement, is what I want to say, not falling apart, need refinement. And so in 12 months, you could either come up with a new list or send out the same list and ask them to pick, their top five again. And maybe we work on three the next year. But the goal is to get as close to harmonious team execution as possible. And it is possible. If you're a leader of people, I implore you, I almost need you to believe that you can have a kind heart, a good team, a high performing team, and make money. Like, it's not one or the other. They coexist together. They have to coexist together. And when the team buys into these kinds of things, as nerdy as they might seem, I think that the nerdy part is old. It's the old regime, and we're no longer in that. And I think people want to come to work and be in harmony with one another. It's not that they're going to never have a disagreement or conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is one of my favorite things to talk about, because people are people, right? And we're messy, and we're going to get it wrong, and we're not going to be in a good mood, and we're not going to want to talk, and all those things are going to still happen. However, if we have a default, then we know at the end of the day, we only have each other in this department. And that's cool, because, like, at the end of the day, I have your back. And if I don't have your back, I want to be able to tell you I don't have your back. And not because I want to walk around with, this idea that you're only in it for yourself, but I just want to know the truth. And so, like, for me and my team, I tell them all the time, guys, we don't have to like each other. We just have to be able to work together. But the truth is, we do like each other, and everyone does get along, and everyone does see the other person's strengths. And that's the beauty of it. And when we get to that point where push comes to shove, we're going to stand up for one another way more than we're going to stand up for, than we're going to allow anyone else to penetrate our department, right? And there is a very special thing when that happens. And I think these agreements, they help you get there. And so I encourage you to send the email to info@leadershipfromtheheart.com, or reply to this in the show notes and ask for them, and have the courage. Have the courage to ask your team what they think. Have the courage to implement. And it's going to be scary, guys. It's going to be scary. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, but that's how you know it's right. That's how you know it's the right thing to do, because it is a little scary and it is a little vulnerable, and you're the leader. And so that's your role. Your role is to lead people. And if you are stepping into leadership, or you are a leader, this is your next step, and a couple of in-house announcements is, I have a new leadership accelerator program just launched. This is for any leader who is stepping into a new role. So lead going into supervisor, supervisor going into manager, manager into director, director into VP, VP into SVP or C-suite, whatever the case may be, there's an orientation that I put on for you. And while I'm only targeting organizations, I am open to doing one-on-ones with people who are inside my community. And that's the other announcement, is that I have a community that we're building, the Leadership Circle, and it's currently on a wait list. I am offering the first 50 founding members in for free for life. The rest is $29 a month, which is nothing. I wish for myself that I had a place to land during my leadership journey. Luckily for me, I had wonderful mentors. But if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have someone to bounce ideas off of, you don't have someone to ask the questions, then allow me to be that for you, because I do feel very deeply in my heart that that is my pay it forward. And so you can always email me. You can always ask in the show note chat, whatever happens, for the link, and we'll send it right over. You know, most of the leaders I work with inside my mentorship, they start here, but I don't really bring people into the one-on-one because I want to make sure that you're ready for the work that we're going to do, because leadership is not about you fixing the people outside of you. It's about you fixing you so the people outside of you kind of mirror you and rise to your standards. And that's why a lot of my videos, a lot of my content always go back to you as the leader. And it's not to point out the flaws of the leader, but everything is just a mirror. And so if you can fix what's happening inside, then the outside will just be a reflection of that. And it is the deepest work you'll ever do, but it is the most rewarding work you'll also ever do. And so with that, I close today's episode, and I want to thank you guys for listening. I know this one was a quick one, but it is what it is, right? It's team operating guidelines. It's very clean cut. There's a framework that we can use, or that I can send you. And I hope you have a great week. And we'll talk again next week on another episode of Leadership from the Heart. Thanks for listening. See ya.